Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today the video is going to be a bit different. We're going to make a rhubarb crumble and chat about how I got diagnosed with celiac disease. So this recipe can be adapted to whatever crumble you want to make. It's just a very simple recipe, but I thought it would be a fun way to connect and to just share my story with celiac disease. I was diagnosed 13 years ago, so I just wanted to share a little bit with you. So to start with the recipe, I just took 750 grams of rhubarb and we're going to start chopping that. So I'll just chop it into chunks of about 2 or 3 centimeters, depending on how thick the rhubarb is. But yeah, so we'll just chop this up. I've already washed it. As I said, I was diagnosed with celiac disease 13 years ago. That would have been, I guess, 2011. It was about October, if I remember correctly. And it all started in about July, I want to say. I was in my second year of university. If you don't know, I studied to be a dentist at university. And I was in my second year finishing the exams for that semester. I remember this was like a Saturday or Sunday morning, and I was supposed to study for exams because I had my last exam coming up that. So I woke up with this extreme pain in my stomach. Like, it was horrible. And I went rushing over to my parents. They took me to the hospital and I thought I had appendicitis or something like that. But in the end, it was a ovarian cyst. So yeah, I was diagnosed with an ovarian cyst, and then that was in the emergency room. They gave me some pain medication, and yeah, I don't really remember what else. But essentially what they said in the exams that they made was that they couldn't really say what the cyst was. So if it was good, bad, or what type of cyst it was. And that's when I got really scared. Like, I was super stressed and thought, what happens if I've got the C word, you know? So it was a really stressful time. I remember I did my exams, passed everything. And then when the holidays came, which were like a couple of weeks later, I had surgery to remove the cyst. It was done laparoscopically, and they just removed the cyst, so not the entire ovary or anything. So that was good, but I was terrified. Like, I was super stressed about it. So just to continue with the recipe, I've got my rhubarb, and I'm just going to get a bit of white normal sugar and put a couple of tablespoons on this. This really depends on how sour or sweet you like the rhubarb. I am trying to cut back on a bit on sugar, so I don't put that much, but at the same time I don't want it to be super sour, even though I really like sour stuff. This was 750 grams of rhubarb. I just put 2 heaped tablespoons of sugar on it. And my secret, especially for a rhubarb crumble, is you don't really want these stringy pieces coming out. You want almost like a jam to form at the bottom with the crumble on the top. So my secret is to put this into the oven for a while, maybe like 15 minutes, so it pre-cooks, and then I'll put the crumble on top, and everything will cook together in the oven, and then you'll get really soft bottom with this crunchy crumbled top, which is amazing. Please do it and just put it in the oven. So I've preheated the oven for about some minutes at a 180, and I'm just going to pop it in. Okay, so now we're going to make the crumble itself. This is a really easy recipe. It doesn't have to be super like exact, but to continue with the story. So then I had surgery. They removed the cyst laparoscopically. In the end, the biopsy came back and it was benign. It was part of the normal process, but it had gotten really big and it had burst. So that was why I was in so much pain. And after the surgery, I recuperated well, and then all of a sudden I got a lot of stomach issues. I had to go to the bathroom multiple times a day, had diarrhea, and all of a sudden my energy levels started dropping considerably. I was a really good student. I could study like for hours long, sit at my desk and just study for hours. I don't know how I did it, but that was who I was at that time. And all of a sudden, my nails got super brittle. My hair started getting like super not nice. And my mom also noticed that I was kind of super tired all the time, no energy. And I remember this time I said, okay, I came back from university, sat at my desk, had to study. And all of a sudden, I woke up with the phone ringing at my house like 3 hours later. I had no idea I had fallen asleep at my desk. That had never ever happened to me. And yeah, so I just woke up from this huge nap when I was supposed to be studying. So yeah, then we went back to the doctor that had operated on me, the gynecologist, and we told him like all the symptoms, and he said, this has nothing to do with me, this is something completely different. And I was like super surprised. So he sent me to the gastroenterologist or the stomach doctor. And yeah, so there is where I'll leave the story and we can continue with the recipe. So we just have a bowl. I have a half a cup. So we'll mix in half a cup of oats. These are gluten-free oats, and half a cup of flour. I'm trying to eat a bit more healthy than usual, so I just use oat flour, or if you have rice flour or a mix that you have it, this recipe really works with any of those. So just half a cup of oat flour. I use this one that I get at DM, and the oats are also from DM. This is not sponsored, but this is what I buy. Next, I'll add in some brown sugar. I'll add about half a cup and a bit more. So I'm just going to measure that out really quick. So this is half a cup of sugar and a tiny bit more. This is me adapting from a regular recipe, but this is how I make it. So we've got the sugar, the oats, the flour. Just give that a mix. And what I do like adding sometimes, if I have it on hand, is a bit of, these are ground almonds. So let me just open that. And this, I might add maybe a quarter of a cup. It gives it a really nice flavor, I find. And if you have it, like if you have slivered almonds, you can add slivered almonds at the end of this recipe, and it's really good. So just give that a mix. And we have the mix of the flours, the oats, and the sugar. And I was almost forgetting a bit of cinnamon. I love cinnamon. If you don't like it, you don't have to add it, but I really like it. So that goes in. This is, so we should add like 1 teaspoon. I like it really cinnamony. So you can also add a bit of cinnamon to the rhubarb. Just forgot this time, but you can do that if you remember. So then we add in the cinnamon, and the next step is to add in some butter, which will make this all go together. And you'll need about half a cup of butter. I already know. It's like 100 grams of butter, so quite a bit. And what I'll do is I'll break it into pieces. It's cold from the fridge. As you can see, there's not much technique or anything going on in this recipe. It's just super easy recipe, like to make when you feel like eating something good, but you don't have so much energy to do it. So now what we have to do is just mix all of this in. It's easier with your hands. So to continue with my story, I was sent to the gastroenterologist, and to be honest, I was super lucky. I went to this doctor that I think was recommended to my mom, and she saw me, we explained what had happened, and she said, you know, to be honest, with your symptoms, the lack of energy and everything, she said, I think it's 2 possibilities. One is that you have some sort of bacteria in your system, in your GI system, or you have this thing called celiac disease. What's that? Okay, so she sent to do a couple of exams. One was this stool exam, and then the other thing was some blood tests. And within the blood test was the antibody, the blood test for celiac disease. And The results came back. The stool sample was negative, and the celiac blood test was positive. And she said, okay, this has to be confirmed with an endoscopy. So we scheduled the endoscopy. She said I should be eating normally because if I stopped eating gluten right away, then we could get a false negative. So after that, I did have the endoscopy, and I remember her saying that she could clearly see this mosaic pattern in my small intestine, which was very typical of celiacs. And so they took a biopsy that took a couple of weeks to have the results and my diagnosis. So as you can see, this is what you want as a texture for the crumble. So there's these like big clumps, which are my favorite, and then everything else is coated with butter. So this is the texture you need. And so we'll wait a few minutes for the rhubarb to cook, and then we'll put this on top. I'm going to go make myself a coffee and be right. So I got my coffee, and we're going to get the rhubarb out of the oven. So I hope it can be seen in the camera that the rhubarb is actually quite soft. I can kind of stick a fork through it, but not completely. It is softer than what it is, but it's not fully cooked through. So what we'll do now is just sprinkle this crumble on top. It seems it's a lot of crumble, but it's always better when it's that way. So just sprinkle this mix on top and make a mess. So just going to put it here. Just sprinkle it and try and don't lose all those. If you like those big clumps, don't break them up to small, because if not, they're going to like disappear. I like those big chunks of crumble. So just going to sprinkle that on top. And this has to go into the oven for around half an hour, 40 minutes. Careful, remember it's going to be hot. So, hey Siri, set a timer for 30 minutes.
30 minutes starting now.
Don't forget to set your timer. So, continuing with my story, I got diagnosed. So at that moment I lived in Chile because I was born there and I was raised there, and I'm Chilean, if you did not know that. And the doctor told me that I had to start a strict diet with gluten. She explained a bit of cross contact to me, but not much. And she directed me to the website of an association in Chile that does the certifications for certain products. And honestly, I learned a lot of the things I know on my own by doing my own research. I remember when I was waiting for the results, I looked a lot on what was celiac disease, what does this mean. I kind of educated myself before getting the diagnosis. In my heart, I knew I had this because all the symptoms fit. I was hoping that it wasn't, but I kind of knew it was. Yeah, I got the diagnosis. I remember my boyfriend, which is my husband now, arrived a couple of hours later because I told him, with this huge bag from the supermarket with a ton of the only gluten-free things you could find in the supermarket back then, because this was 13 years ago. I mean, there has been a boom of gluten-free products in the last maybe 5 or 7 years. Before that, it wasn't so known and people really didn't know what you were up against. So yeah, my life changed on that day. It was a day in October, and I started very disciplined. I ate gluten-free from that day on ever since. Obviously I've gotten gluten and all the rest of it, but since that day I was explained the risks of eating a gluten diet while having disease. The risk was too high. I don't want to have cancer. I want to try and avoid it as much as possible. I want to not have the problems that people get when they continue eating gluten. And I wanted to feel better than I felt at that moment, because I just didn't feel. So yeah, after that, I remember we also booked a course in the capital city. We lived like 2 hours away and had a gluten-free course. I love to bake, and I honestly learned how to bake again, like from scratch, because it's so different. So it's been a journey. I've had a few blogs before. I even made baked goods and sold them with a cousin. So yeah, it's been a journey, but thank you for listening. So I'll just fast forward this to when the crumble is ready and show you the result. So it's been half an hour and we're going to get the crumble out. Ooh, this looks good. Be careful, it's gonna be very hot. So here, have a look at this. It's still bubbling, looks really good. I recommend to eat it with a bit of ice cream, vanilla ice cream, or some people like it with cream. I don't, but delicious. And while I was waiting for this to be made, I made these meatballs for meal prep. So I might share this recipe later, but look pretty good. They'll go in the oven now. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining me and for listening to my story. If you have any questions, and as always, it would be super helpful for you to subscribe to my channel and like this video. See you next time. Bye.